And welcome to the Midday Show, a special show today. We're combining, I'm going to call it a combined show with North Central Cinema. We have Joe Smith with us, our cinematic guru. Mark, as always, 2023 summer movie reviews. It's kind of a crazy summer for movies. We've kind of spread it out a little bit. Some of us have seen Barbie. Some of us have seen Oppenheimer, some Sound of Freedom. I think this is going to be a really interesting conversation. Mark, how are you feeling today?
I am ready.
Now open it up to Joe. How are you feeling today?
Fantastic. I'm retired, man, and every day is
Well, I was going to say, when you said a crazy summer, it's the best summer for movies in a while. I mean, I know we had COVID and that messed everything up cinematically, as much as it messed up the world. But
well, I've been reviewing movies in this area for 25 years, and to go downtown on a Saturday afternoon and see the parking lot is full. You can't find a spot to park. Even movies that have been out for a while have a substantial crowd in them. There's lines at the concession. There's lines at the drink stand. I haven't seen that many people at the movie theater in a long time. Well, COVID or not.
We have a lot to go through, but like the movies that people are talking about have nobody's disappointed in them. I mean, that's the thing about this summer. I know when Mario came out, I know it made a lot of money, but people are like, yeah, and then there's always these like, eh. I know Indiana Jones had that too a little bit, but I know, as we were talking about, it's made $350 million, and lots of people of our generation enjoyed it for what the nostalgia that it was. So there's no, we've all seen the clunkers, and I'm trying to think of like a Black Adam is one that comes to the top of my mind that The Rock was in. And there's these build-ups to ones, but they're the one people go and they're coming home and saying it's great.
I think Joe has a clunker for us today.
Oh, he does?
I think he does. We don't have to start there, but I do think he has.
Are you talking about the B movie?
I think so. I personally.
Wait, which movie?
Well,
how did you know this about me, Jeff?
What's that?
How did you know this about me? Because I've been trying to keep it on the down low over here.
I think you told me.
Okay.
I would like to start with Sound of Freedom because it's the most. I don't want to say controversial, but
there's a lot of.
Well, tell our story about how you first found out.
Well, we were sitting here one day, and Jeff said, "Have you heard of this movie, Sound of Freedom?" And of course, with all my worldly intellect, I was like, "I never heard of it." And he goes, "Well, this is what it's about, and this is maybe why you've never heard of it." And I hadn't seen anything. And then after I looked it up, and then I started seeing reviews, and there were constantly friends on Facebook saying, I'm at the movies. You need to see this movie. It's so good. And then we followed it for like a week, just checking its daily results. And it's been. I mean, the movie's obviously I haven't seen it, but you guys have. But it's been such a successful movie, and it's been so well regarded. But the story around it, with socially and who would advertise and how it didn't get publicized, like that's as big of a story almost as the movie itself.
Yeah, I haven't followed that so much, so I don't know what the controversy is around that. I only know that I will just say, if you want to talk about the controversy, I'm going to leave that to you. I was very impressed by the film's restraint, that it's really quiet. You never see anything sexual. There's no violence. It's not exploitative at all of the kids, which Hollywood doesn't seem to be able to film movies about sexual abuse and that sort of thing without being sexually abusive in the movie. But this movie does it. It's very low key, and I thought it was terrific.
I enjoyed it. I thought the highs were really high. Yeah. There were moments where I was like, this is unbelievably good. There were lulls where like 10, 15 minutes I was kind of like this is rough. Like, I'm not really sure where we're going here. You, I believe, are going to talk about him later today on North Central Cinema.
Yes, sir.
I thought Bill Camp saved the movie for me personally.
Yeah.
Because there was a stretch where like the first 45 minutes to an hour of it, I was kind of like, boy, like if this is what we're doing for the next hour and a half, I don't know if I'm in for this. And then Bill Camp's character gets introduced to the story, and I completely was bought it. I was like, all right, if this is what we're doing, I'm kind of into it.
Yeah, you have that moment in the middle of the film when his character has to explain how he was redeemed out of a life of crime and actually being a trafficker and even a sex abuser. And basically, God called him and said, "You can't do this anymore." If you don't have an actor like Bill Camp to deliver that dialogue, you're in big trouble because it could completely fall on its face. I said to my wife, "That's why they hired a guy like Bill Camp for this role because he was so good in that."
Yeah, he grabbed the steering wheel for me. 'Cause
That's
I was
a
a little
very
nervous.
good expression,
Yeah,
Jeff.
I was very nervous there for a second.
Yep.
Do you think you'll see it?
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
Yes.
Now at this point, I don't know if I'll see it in the theater because I don't know how much longer it'll be here. And,
It's still doing well.
and my daughter is coming. She's in college, but she's spending the summer working in Pittsburgh, and she's home next week. And we already have a date for Oppenheimer. So I don't know. I'm a guy who. This is one of the weird things we talk about how often you get to the theater. I saw Guardians of the Galaxy with my kids, which I would have never gone to except my kids wanted to go see it. And I think the last summer I saw Elvis and Top Gun. But to even consider going to the theater 3 or 4 or 5 times in a summer has just been unheard of for me in my adult life, maybe even as a kid.
Yep.
And there are literally 5 movies I wanted to see, and it is crazy. So I might see it if I get a chance, and if one of these nights one of my buddies calls and says, "Yeah, let's go see it." Oh, another movie I forgot to mention that did well was what was the comedy one with oh my gosh, the girl not the one that played Katniss, or was it the girl that played Katniss?
Jennifer
Oh,
Lawrence.
No Hard Feelings.
Yeah, I heard that was really good too, and I know that had a big buzz early in the summer before these other ones showed up.
Before we go too far down, I do want to. What I find fascinating is because you didn't know about the controversy,
Yeah.
and you just saw the movie for movie's sake.
Yeah.
Do you feel like the movie had a preachiness to it? Do you feel like the movie was there anything after seeing it that you felt like there was a hidden message or there was something that you would have taken from it?
No, I don't think so. I thought there was like a special message at the end. You sit through the credits.
Yes.
I thought that was a little heavy-handed,
Sure.
but that's almost not even part of the movie, really.
Yeah.
It's very much tacked on. No, in fact, I thought the movie was very unpreachy.
Okay.
And was just trying to tell a story. And to do that, it would focus on his rescue of 2 individuals,
Yeah.
which made it very much a narrative rather than a sermon.
Yeah. No, I agree. I was really impressed too, and we're going to talk about this with Oppenheimer as well, but we'll do Barbie next. I thought the use of sound was really, really impressive. Now, obviously, Oppenheimer is a whole different animal in the use of sound, but the Sound of Freedom, the quiet moments, like really allowed you to digest what was in front of you. I never felt overwhelmed, which is very unique nowadays because I feel like everything now, like I liked Elvis because it was fast cutting and the pace, and even Oppenheimer, like the pace of it. It was like the opposite experience with Sound of Freedom.
It's an anti-blockbuster sort of.
Yes.
Because there's very little action and it's very quiet.
Yes.
Yep.
So I enjoyed that aspect of it. I'm fascinated to hear you guys talk about Barbie. I have not seen Barbie yet.
But you are the one that wore pink. I can't tell.
I did.
You look
I
a little orange,
specifically-
but that's pink.
I specifically wore pink today because I figured if I couldn't see Barbie, I would wear pink and I would represent Barbie. This is something that I probably won't see in theaters. I will probably watch at home on my projector because I'm just not like a Barbie. Like the whole enthusiast Barbie thing doesn't get me. I don't have kids.
You don't want to sit behind an 8-year-old holding 4 dolls.
I don't. It's not. I think out of all the things I could see this summer, Barbie is not something.
There's not popcorn. There's 2 dolls sticking out of each cup holder. I'm like, wow, I've never seen this before in a movie.
I'll let you do.
So you didn't like
go
it?
at it first?
I hated it, Mark. I hated it with a fiery volcanic hatred, not to overstate matters. So I don't know which one of us wants to go first. You're welcome to if you like.
No, you go ahead. You're on a
Ready to
roll.
go.
All right. I was prepared for it to be weird or surreal or like out there, goofy, plasticky, but it was so preachy, just cramming the gender equality thing down your throat. And in order to do that, had to make men on the extremes. In the movie, the men, they're either witless jackasses who have no power or influence in the world, or then Ken comes back from the patriarchy and decides he's going to turn Barbie world into a patriarchy. Then it has to exacerbate the worst excesses of men. They're drunks, they're bossy, they're controlling, they're thoughtless, they're messy, they fight all the time. And I'm thinking, just throw men under the bus, why don't you? And to me, it was extremely preachy. And in order to be preachy, it had to be very exaggerated, which I found extremely annoying.
Was there anything you liked? Just out of
I
curiosity,
thought Margot Robbie was fantastic.
Okay.
Yeah, she was. I can't think of another actress who could have pulled that off.
Okay.
Rhea Perlman has a small role. She was great, and I really liked America Ferrera's diatribe on how hard it is to be a woman in the modern age. Her thesis is we always have to be extraordinary, but somehow we're always doing it wrong. And it's a long speech, and I thought it was very well written, and I agreed with it. That's about it, though. Those three things were about it. Other than that, I could have walked out after an hour and been perfectly happy.
Well, I love this because you enjoyed it. What did you enjoy about it?
I mean, it was preachy because it kind of had to be. And when you think of the world of, in the Barbie world, much like the Wonder Woman world where it was all women, the Barbie world where Ken's whole thing is, I don't exist without Barbie. There is no Ken. It's Barbie and Ken. It's not just Ken. So in that world where the women dominate, and I thought it was, I don't want to give parts of the movie away.
I don't think you have to worry about spoilers.
But when he was when he would say to her, I want to stay over tonight, and she said, I don't want you to. It's a girls' night. Every night's a girls' night. And then I think it did show the great inequities of women's roles in male society. And it was funny when America gave her speech, because I've talked to women about this before. I worked on a project with a female who had told me many times that she would be in these boardrooms and she was the only woman in the room. And one of the things that I realized years ago in professional life is that the width that a man can walk in a leadership role is wide. As a man who is a leader or a boss or a coach or whatever, you never have to smile. And that's perfectly, it's almost respected.
And you never have to worry about whether you're wearing a suit or slacks.
Yes. He's intense. He's focused. He's driven. All these things as a man are wonderful characteristics in a leadership role. If you're a woman and you carry all those same characteristics, you're a bitch. But then on the other side, as a woman, if you're nice and kind, then you're seen as soft, or you're seen as fine. So where men can walk women in leadership positions have to walk a tightrope.
So what you're describing, it's not about disagreeing with what you're describing. The question is, how does that work in a movie? And if you're trying to pitch me on going to see Barbie, I don't know if the pitch is I want an over-exaggerated version of that. Did that make sense? I don't know. If I'm trying to pick what summer movie I want to go watch or enjoy, I don't know if the exaggerated explanation of that is going to get me to buy popcorn.
And it is over the top, and that's the way they want to go about it. But I think the parental role and the dialogues between the mom and the daughter and the struggles of, they started out with the kid who is angry at the world, but the mother-daughter relationship was the struggle with the mother watching the child grow up and how hard it is to be a mother. And one of my favorite, maybe my favorite line in the movie was, other than the voiceover when they said, when you're trying to find someone that looks ugly, you can't have Margot Robbie playing the part, which was brilliant. But when the mom was driving and the teenage daughter looked at her and says, Mom, where did you learn to drive like that? And she goes, oh, some guy. And she goes, you mean Dad? And she's like, yeah, sure, it was Dad. And there were so many subtle little things that I thought were brilliant. One of the ones at the very end of the movie, when she got out of the car, when she was now real, and she had sandals on, and she didn't have high heels on.
Okay.
And I saw that, and I was like, God, that's brilliant.
Do you think it helped that you have daughters?
My daughters didn't play with Barbies. I don't know.
But
I know
you just described to me had anything to do with Barbies. It had to do with being a female in the world.
I mean, two things that I meant that I also thought were great. You mentioned Rhea Perlman, and for those of us who remember Cheers, everybody loves Carla Tortelli. But I thought Will Ferrell was great. I thought Kate McKinnon was great. And I was just talking to Carrie, our news director, who had seen it with her daughter. And I said, as a guy who never played with Barbies, I never thought about the whole weird Barbie experience And she's like, oh yeah, everyone had a weird Barbie. And
Real quick, what's the weird Barbie? Or we're not giving anything away.
it's just a Barbie that people
mistreated and dressed
mistreated.
wrongly.
Then all of a
It's
sudden its
Alright.
hair was purple, or it was cut, or it's
spray
clothes.
painted blue.
It
maybe.
had tattoos drawn on it. It was
Okay.
they said the Barbie that was played with too hard.
Okay.
So I just thought, and I also I thought Margot Robbie was great with the naivety that she showed going into the real world. But I think it was a very I think it was a very real aspect where Ken went from having no power and being to, once he had all the power, that he acted like a jerk because he now had all the power. And I think that's a very common aspect in life, that it's, once the people in charge often don't remember what it's like not to be in charge. So
I have to ask this because both of you just talked about Barbie for 15 minutes and not one of you said Ryan Gosling. Is it that you guys didn't think was Gosling not one of the better performers in the movie?
No, I thought
Did
he
you
was
not
good.
appreciate the
I thought he's good. It's a hard performance.
You,
You're not gonna like
you
it.
didn't love Gosling.
My wife says, do women really want to see Ryan Gosling as like this emasculated wimp? And I'm thinking, yeah, maybe not.
Okay.
I found it very hard to watch because I like him and his character is just so, whether powerless or overbearing, either way, I didn't find him palatable at all. And I was surprised that he signed on for the role.
I'm curious, because having not seen it, I'm curious, what genre would you guys define? Like, is it a comedy? Is it a children? Like, how would you guys?
It's not killer. I'd almost say it's satire.
Satire.
Okay.
I thought Gosling was good because it's an impossible role to play. It was almost like who was the guy that played the eye candy in the new Ghostbusters movie with all the girls?
Hemsworth.
Yes, where he was dumber than a brick, but they just hired him because he was good looking. But Gosling had to try, but he's a talented guy. I mean, we've seen him, from everywhere, from Behind the Pines to what, he's certainly talented. And this was a weird role. But I can understand why he did. And I don't think I think he was fine. I think Margot Robbie's role was so much better. And Will Ferrell's role and Kate McKinnon's role, but I thought he did fine. I thought it was.
If you had to guess, will I like it? No, you knowing what I watch and what I appreciate, well, I like it.
You'll appreciate it. I think you'll appreciate it. I think people who are parents will appreciate just that. And it was, of all the layers of the movie, of what Barbie did to kids and society, and the male roles and the female roles and blah 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 blah. They only really touched on the mother-daughter part a little. And obviously I'm not a mother, but as the parent part of like watching the change in life and trying to slow down time as there, I think that really meant something to me, which you won't be able to relate to yet. But you'll probably say it was a big ant.
Okay. Just so I understand how much you dislike.
Wait, was it flaming volcanic?
Fiery volcanic.
When you would
Yeah.
rate or rank
And
movies,
that's, I'm beating around the bush there, Mark.
did you use like a star system? Like, how did you rank movies?
I generally don't use a star system because
Okay.
I find that if I use a star system, people look right at that and they don't bother reading the review.
Understand.
So I don't know how many stars I would give it.
I
I
do
will
all the
say,
time.
since you talked about the other thing that bothered me, and my wife said the same thing, even though it's got this mother-daughter thing in it, it has this strong anti-motherhood message undertone to it that's really disturbing to me. Like, you got little girls bashing their baby dolls' heads open in the opening scene. And I'm like, wow, that's a little cringy, man. And then you got this pregnant Barbie named Midge, and the narrator literally says, yeah, because that was just too weird. And I'm thinking, why is it weird to have a pregnant Barbie? There's a cool pregnant Barbie who's handicapped or disabled in the film. There's a cool pregnant Barbie who's overweight. Can't we also have why did I say pregnant? There's a cool Barbie who has these other aspects. Why can't we also have one that's pregnant? It's because motherhood just ain't a part of this film. Apparently it's not an option. And I say, hey man, if you want to suggest that girls' night out and career and power is more important than spouses and families, you're thinking like a patriarch. And I don't like that.
Interesting.
Well, I think there was a part, I don't know if it was like it was just that it's hard and motherhood is thankless. And there was a line in it that I don't know the line exactly, but it's basically like there's a point where the mother stops walking so the child can look back and see how far we've come. And there is that. I don't think it was I didn't take it as anti-motherhood or anti-parenthood. I took it as parenthood is hard. It's not all a bowl of cherries. It is emotionally challenging. And then like the part you get where the mother's like, my life is boring. I do this. I have a teenage daughter who hates me. And how many people have the teenager who they just fight with all the time just because that's what teenagers do?
That's very relatable. And then the healing of that relationship was I thought that is a good aspect.
The one I did say to you in a text that I'm not surprised at all that the movie is divisive or even preachy or however, because Greta Gerwig, there's no way she was going to do this and not like have something to say.
Yeah, and don't forget her partner Noah Baumbach, who's now
Yeah.
made two. I'm probably not pronouncing his name correctly. He's now made two other movies about the breakup of marriage.
Yeah.
The Squid and the Whale, which was very painful to watch, and Marriage Story, which was also kind of painful to watch.
Yes.
And I'm thinking he's still processing his own parents' divorce.
Mhm.
And in this film, I think he's processed it right out of existence. I mean, it's so focused. This was a point my wife made. It's so focused on the power struggle between men and women. It almost forgets that romantic love is like a possibility.
Mhm.
It's all political, and the possibility that a guy and a girl might care for each other and sacrifice for each other is just not even on the table.
Yeah.
And to me, that's really
Now
depressing.
I may like it. No,
Oh man,
but
I'm sorry I
is-
said that.
No. I'm joking, but it is. I think the best thing about those filmmakers is like the best thing about them is they always have something to say, and it comes through in their movies. The worst thing about them is they always have something to say, and it comes through in their movies.
Yeah.
And I've always felt that way about Gerwig, whether it was Little Women or anything.
You didn't like Little Women?
It's not that I dislike it. It's just like the message. You just almost can't just enjoy what's in front of you because the message is just so brutally in front of you the entire time. Which is why I'm not surprised at all.
Yeah,
Whether you like Barbie
when your
or
message
dislike Barbie,
overwhelms your story, you don't have art anymore.
a little
you've
bit.
got
I enjoyed
propaganda.
what was in front of me.
There you go. Right, and that's why I said I'm curious to see if I feel the same way as I did. With
Well,
Little Women.
and I knew very little going in.
Me
First
too.
I didn't even know to wear pink,
Me too,
which
Mark.
I got
You
there, and
should've
then
known.
I was like, oh, I just didn't know I was supposed to wear pink. And
I don't think
So,
it would have made any difference
I
for me,
was-
Frank. I don't have anyone
and
paying.
visually, it was so like it. It was almost like you were looking at a birthday cake for an hour and a half.
I
Like,
have been
that's
told
what.
that it's worth seeing just to see some of the sets, like just the visualness of it.
And but yeah, it was shockingly deep to me. The social, the genders, the parenthood.
See, now I have to see it.
It's
Now I need to see it sooner rather than later. Unfortunately for you, you have not had a chance to see. You'll see Oppenheimer.
We're going next week. My daughter, we already have a date, and we're going next week. My other daughter has seen it.
Okay.
Her comment, because that's when we talked about it, she said it's long.
Oh, it's 2.5,
Three.
a little over,
180.
almost 3. Now I was fortunate. I don't know if I told you this or not. I got to see it in an IMAX theater, which was otherworldly. Getting to see this movie. This is good. I mean, the next 10 minutes is just going to be a gush fest. I'm assuming between you and I.
Get your raincoat on, dude.
Yes, it is. To me, it's one of the best movies I've ever seen.
Oh, wow.
Personally,
Okay.
for me.
So you probably think it's Nolan's best film.
I think it's Nolan's best film, but see, I'm also like, I think Dunkirk's great. I don't think it's one of the greatest, but some people think Dunkirk's a masterpiece. And like, as great as I think it is, I wouldn't call it a masterpiece. I think this is a masterpiece. I understand why people get upset with the final hour because it doesn't take you to a different movie, but I understand why it's a letdown after the build-up for the first 2 hours. I relate to that, but for me, I loved the last hour. The last hour for me.
I didn't feel let down by that.
Okay. Because I think if you listen to like podcasts or read other reviews, I think there are people who feel like it's almost two separate movies, and I vehemently disagree.
Depends on how much you like Robert Downey. I mean, that last hour of the film is a lot of it is his, and he's so freaking good in this movie.
I didn't even know Robert Downey was in it.
If he doesn't get,
great.
neither did I, Mark. And I'm looking at it going, is
That's
that
it.
Robert Downey?
You're like it's Iron Man for crying out loud.
I mean, if he doesn't get, and I'm not talking about just a nomination, if he doesn't get the Academy Award for this, they ought to take the Academy and strap them to a nuclear warhead and fire them into outer space.
I don't like the fact that Joe has very tempered opinions today.
I think the Academy is going to be in a tough spot because I think a sweep is like a reasonable, I don't want to call it an expectation, but I think if it were to happen, it's unbelievably reasonable.
Wow, I hadn't thought about that.
But
Like a Silence of the Lambs.
Is there a best actress though?
I think you could. I think Blunt.
Okay.
I know her role didn't have the meat of it,
Yeah,
but I thought she was great in what she
was.
had to work with.
yeah, especially at the end.
Because you have to play what she had to do. She had to play a drunk who you believed was able to perform the duties she needed to perform, and that's impossible. Like to portray somebody that is intellectually able, but yet at the same time, she is drunk the entire time. And I never forgot through the movie that she was a drunk. As she's doing these things, I thought her performance, she didn't have enough to work with, but I thought what she had to work with was unreal.
Yeah, I'm not sure they would nominate her for best actress unless they're thinking sweep.
Yeah.
But script, direction, picture, actor, I can see it winning all four. I can see it getting like 12 nominations.
Yeah.
Photography,
Sound.
production design,
Yeah.
all of that.
You guys both know this. This is my only contribution to the whole thing, other than I didn't know Robert Downey was in it. That Matt Damon and his wife were in marriage counseling. Have you heard this story?
No, I haven't.
And he was, and it's to go off on a tangent. It's one of the I guess positive things about it because Matt Damon and his wife have been together for a long time. She's not famous. She was whatever, and they seemed like this happy Hollywood couple, but. They're having struggles just like everyone else in their marriage counseling. And one of the things that he had said was, I will take a break from acting so we can focus on our family and
Until
our marriage
Christopher
and our
Nolan
kids.
came.
Unless, and this was his one, unless Christopher Nolan calls. And if he calls, I'm taking that call. And they're like, sure enough, however, a week or two later, Christopher Nolan calls and he's like, with his wife, he's like, honey, you're not going to believe this. And that's how he's in the movie. But he was the only name that came out. He didn't say, well, Ben and I do a movie or Spielberg. He's like, if Christopher Nolan calls, I got to listen to that one. And
That's
Christopher
interesting
Nolan
too,
calls.
because I'm wondering I can easily think of 3 performances that could get nominated for best supporting actor from this film.
Mhm.
And that almost never happens, that more than one person gets nominated for the same category from the same movie. But I thought the guy playing Edward Teller, his name's Benny Safdie, never heard of him.
Yeah.
Boy, I thought he was great. David Krumholtz, I've been following his career for more than 20 years now. Best performance I've ever seen by him. Damon was extraordinarily good.
Yeah.
And Gary Oldman.
Yeah.
I watched half that scene and I didn't even know it was him.
It was him.
And I'm like, I said to my friend, it's not Oldman, he's playing Harry S. Truman. And I didn't even recognize him for half the scene. So I'd be curious as to what they do with that.
I just and again, I'll just gush one more time. I think I texted this to you actually. I just thought I've never seen somebody use sound and visual and just even close up and wide.
And you said
spectrum,
color too.
and just color, like, and the way it all just kind of spirals together. And even like I don't even know what you would call this, but even the way he makes the rooms shake and how you can tell tension is rising because like a bookshelf is shaking in the background or a chair is starting to rattle on the floor. Just those little subtle things and how he just made them all work together. And at the same time, you never felt overwhelmed. Like you were anxious and you knew it was coming, but it was never like I'm lost. Like I don't know what he's doing here. I just thought it was maybe masterpiece is too strong of a word. I just don't know who else could have done that. I don't think there's
Not with that story, which
no.
When I first heard about the film, I'm like, wait a minute, he's making a movie about Oppenheimer? That's a strange. And then I thought 3 hours.
Yeah.
And I thought this is crazy.
And you kind
Dunkirk
of
3 hours maybe.
Yeah.
But Oppenheimer did not seem
In
to fit subject.
the first 2 hours, you know what's going to happen. Like it's a little Titanic-ish, and like the boat's gonna hit an iceberg, and
Wait, what?
Exactly, right? I ruined it for you. And
The
this
bomb
is,
goes off, Mark. I hate to
Yeah.
spoil it for you.
I knew I should have
And-
seen Titanic
and
before
even
today.
and somehow
The
it
Japanese
builds
don't
up-
do well in this film.
and somehow they build up this momentum, and where even though it's coming, you're still just blown away.
Yeah, that
No
editing-
pun
No,
intended.
nice,
You're
nice.
still just blown away. At
The editing
what's
in that
happening.
scene is really, really.
But even the
extraordinary.
choice to use black and white. I mean, how many people would have decided that as we're going to tell this story, the way we're going to separate those two roads, those two paths, those two even just viewpoints, to use black and white as you are seeing it from Straught's point of view is just, I just don't know how many people would have done it. I don't think a lot of people would have, because even the black and white doesn't necessarily decipher time. It actually tells you whose story you're hearing.
Yeah.
And I just think I'm not making it out to be like this genius thing, but I just don't know who else could have done it.
And I think maybe I'll just say one more thing that struck me about it is since I was accusing Barbie of being very preachy, this film also has a message. It's, Oppenheimer realizes, wow. Well, there's this whole thing in the film about how if we push the button, it could start a chain reaction and break all the molecules in the known universe and bring the world to an end.
Matt Damon drops an incredible line.
Yeah, which they got at the head of the preview, so you've probably seen it. But so then that becomes a metaphor where Oppenheimer is thinking, I started a chain reaction of nuclear acceleration around the world, and now we really do have arsenals that could blow up the whole world. And so it's scary in that fashion, but never felt preachy to me. I never felt like I was like someone was trying to beat me over the head. I thought he was just telling his story, and you could see why Oppenheimer was scared and why the rest of us should be rethinking this, but without it feeling like the message was Nolan's. His chief job here was character.
Sure.
Yeah. So let the characters tell the story, and then whatever emerges from that organically can have its effect on the viewer. And I think that's the way you need to make a film, not starting with your message like they did in a certain other film we've been discussing.
Yeah. No, I thought it was incredible.
Now he's talking about Indiana Jones now.
He is, yes. Also, I don't think I'm going to ruin it. Josh Hartnett is in it as well.
I didn't know that either.
I thought he was good. I just felt like
He was very good.
when I first saw him, I was kind of like, oh, this is, and then as you go along, it worked. It definitely worked.
Rami Malek, Alden Ehrenreich was really good, I thought, especially in
Yes.
those final scenes. Even people you haven't heard of are really, really good.
I can never remember his name, but essentially the lawyer for the government who was questioning everybody essentially throughout the entire last hour. I can never remember.
Questioning Oppenheimer?
Yes.
Jason Clarke.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I thought he was great.
Yeah, he's really good.
Because you have to dislike him quickly.
Yeah.
And you have no background on him or any backstory. And he is quickly
he can do that.
unlikable. Yes.
And by the way, can I make a plug here?
No plugging.
All right. If you like Clark,
Yeah.
see Chappaquiddick.
Okay.
He plays Teddy Kennedy. My God, he doesn't look a lot like Theodore Kennedy,
Okay.
but boy, is that a great performance. And that's a very, very good film. Nobody went to see
Has
it.
anyone
Did we talk you into it yet?
to seeing Oppenheimer
Yeah.
or Chappaquiddick?
It's
I'll go see
Oppenheimer's an okay
It's
movie.
all my. I don't know how many times I say it. This is Jeff never listens to me.
I did.
Um,
Just waiting.
So what I do when because I mostly watch movies at home, when I'm watching something real or based on a true story, I go and see how much it's. Have you guys done any of that to see how close it is to real and how over dramatized?
So I thought one of the things that benefited me, and I told you this is, I think part of the reason I loved Elvis so much was I knew very little about Elvis before I saw the movie. I thought one of the things that helped me tremendously was I knew the main figures and who they were, but I knew very little about Los Alamos and the
Right.
story.
But did you
and I
go
thought
back
that
now
did-
and see?
Not really. I mean, I've listened to different podcasts and they talk about this person was really like this and this person was really like that. But I thought for me personally, it made the movie better that I knew the players,
I agree.
but I didn't know kind of the background of it or the story behind it. So for me personally, I thought it helped significantly.
I'm breaking one of my rules here, and I'm gonna call up the New York Times bestseller list because I have a feeling that the book American Prometheus,
Yes.
on which this film is based, has maybe moved onto the bestseller list. I would have to find the nonfiction.
You know, a book while he's doing that, just to change, a book that had
It's
huge,
number one, by the way.
Is it?
It's number one.
A book that had a huge rebirth after was Queen's Gambit.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
Queen's Gambit was written in the early 80s.
Walter Tevis, who's done a lot of stuff. He wrote The Hustler,
Okay.
the movie, that famous Paul
And
Newman
then,
movie.
so
was made
however,
out of.
30 years, whatever, 35 years later after the miniseries came out, the book just
Yeah,
shot
that's
back.
really cool when that happens.
So I need to ask this: how many Dead shows have you seen?
11.
Okay.
Yeah, and I wish I had seen more, man. Yeah, I was a big fan.
I saw one
Okay.
about 6 weeks before, and Bob Dylan opened.
Okay. Wow. Nice.
And so it's a one, and
He's referring to my little emblem here.
yeah, I noticed that halfway through the show. He's got a Grateful Dead shirt on. But,
Ryan Bogacek, who you may remember.
Oh, I do remember Ryan.
now
He wants
notice
to know if-
you said he remembers him. You didn't say you may have liked him.
That's true.
You said he remembers.
Come on, you can't dislike a Bogacek.
He wanted. Well, did you see Guardians 3, Joe?
No, I didn't see the third one.
That was my favorite part of
You
the whole
saw
show right
Guardians
there.
3, right?
That's when you're like, well, I don't know.
You saw.
I did
Guardians
see
3.
Guardians. My kids wanted to see it.
You enjoyed it.
It was fine.
Yeah.
It was, my kids love it. They love. I remember they were talking. I think the first one we actually bought it because they're like, Dad, you need to see this and prep for the second one. And I watched it. They're like, isn't this great? And I was like, why is this great? And I just didn't get it. I mean, it's fine. It's not. It's not
That's
the
gonna be
worst movie I've ever
my
seen.
new catch line, Mark. Why is this great?
But I don't get the whatever of it. And it's funny. It tries, I think, and this would be it does a little of the for the Deadpool-ish of the Marvel. It tries to be funny. It's a little more than the old like Superman that we grew up with. It had, like one funny character in it. But
I mean, there's a talking raccoon. So.
yeah, and I love Groot. I mean, he just grows on you, but no pun intended.
intended.
But yeah, I don't get it, Guardians, but I've seen it.
Any other summer movies you want to mention?
I would like to see the Mission Impossible movie,
Okay.
but I haven't gotten around to it. I can't think what else is coming out this year.
Here's a question for a reviewer, because I in reading about Mission Impossible, so I want to see it too. But there, as you said, there's seven. I think this is seven.
Is number 7.
So one of the reviews I read is you only really have to see 5 and 6 to get 7. I've heard some people say you don't even need to see 5. When you're watching a movie like that, like Indiana Jones, before you go see it, do you go watch the other ones again, or do you never do that?
Well, you want to see something, hear something crazy. I've never seen the first one, the first Mission Impossible. Never saw it.
Okay.
But number 6 I thought was a masterpiece. Was that
Yes.
Ghost Protocol? Yeah.
No, Ghost
No,
was,
Fallout was 6.
Yes,
God, that
Ghost
was
was.
a
I
great
think it was 4.
And no, I don't usually go back and watch them, and unless just for fun. It's a good
Okay.
excuse to watch something. I think a movie kind of has to stand on its own, but then again, with Dial of Destiny, it's not going to work unless you got the nostalgia factor.
Right.
So that's just a case in point there.
And just to reflect, you like Dial of Destiny. You
I thought it was
enjoyed
terrific. It's a little too long, and it could have been written better. But on the whole, I thought it was a lot of fun. I thought Ford was really good.
Well, I was going to say, to go in to watch that, especially if you're old and you remember the first one and saw it in the theater or whatever, it's just supposed to be fun.
Yeah. But it also had its serious moments, too, like that moment on the boat when, she says, if you could go back and see your son one more time, what would you tell him? And he says, I'd tell him not to enlist. Well, she says, well, are you opposed to the war? He said, no, because it was going to kill him. And I would never recover from the loss. And my relationship with his mother would not be sufficient to sustain that loss. But that's a wonderful. You don't expect a scene like that in what's essentially a popcorn movie. And Ford he delivers those lines with such conviction and authority. So I thought it did a little bit of everything, and I really enjoyed it.
If you're a Dracula fan, are you any Dracula?
I'm not a
fans?
big. I don't like
Okay.
vampire movies so much, Jeff.
There
Although
is
what's it called, Demeter?
That is coming out in the next week or two, I believe. Which I'm kind of excited about it. The idea of Dracula.
It's a
on
cool
ship.
idea.
It's a different. It's taking something that's classic and putting it in a different environment, and I'm kind of a fan of that. And then the other one that's coming out later this year. I don't think you and I talked about this. There is a #1 bookseller, Leonardo DiCaprio.
Oh yeah.
Killer Flowers of the Moon.
Yeah.
Or,
It's the new Scorsese film.
I don't know if it's going to make the cutoff, like for the same year as
they'll try that.
as Oppenheimer, but if it does, that showdown, Scorsese, Nolan, Murphy, Leo, like it will be interesting because I think that movie is going to be.
I don't know, Jeffrey. I think as far as the Scorsese goes, I think the torch has been passed.
Yeah.
I mean, Nolan is the man.
Yeah.
To me, take it from a guy who's been watching movies. I mean, I basically see a movie a week since I was like 14 because my dad was a film critic too. There are not many directors whose name can bring someone to the movie theater. There's a few.
Mhm.
Spielberg and Scorsese might be about it right now, where people will say, hey, your average guy says, yeah, we're going to see the Spielberg movie. Most of the time, it's the actors or the storyline or the franchise that brings them to the movie theater. So Nolan is the one. People went to Oppenheimer because it's Nolan. They didn't go because they were interested in the atomic energy program. They went because it's Nolan, and he's the man. And I will say too, I would love to see him do the next Bond movie.
Yeah,
He's expressed some interest in that, and he would have to have control of the script. But that series needs to be rebooted right now, and he would be the man to do it.
Oh, that's an understatement.
As long as it wasn't 3 hours long.
The 3 hours long doesn't bother me. I know I'm probably in the minority there, but it doesn't.
I mean, some of it work. Like with Titanic, it never bothered me a minute. Some of them, I think there's the ones for me is the car chase scenes where it's like it's 25 minutes. You're like, listen, I know no one's gonna die. It's too early in the movie. No one's gonna die. Let's just get on.
That's my least favorite thing about Bond.
Yeah.
Like that, I'd be curious to see what Nolan did with that because, like, my pet peeve with Bond is you have these action sequences where, like, yes, things are happening, but really nothing's happening.
Right.
Like you know kind of what the end of it all is going to be, and I don't know.
You bring up vampires interesting because for whatever reason, maybe this is why I've seen stuff about vampire movies. I just ordered Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Okay.
Because I hadn't seen it in a long time, and I looked where you can find it, and I was just like, so I ordered it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just had a conversation about Interview with the Vampire.
Okay.
With wasn't it Cruise and Pitt?
Weren't they?
That's right.
Definitely Pitt.
And I'm not a huge vampire guy too, but I was again intrigued by these, and I didn't know why they came back in. What's the name of the vampire?
Last Voyage of the Demeter. I'm not sure how you pronounce it.
And it's coming soon.
Next week or two.
Okay. Maybe that's why it's back.
Possibly.
It's interesting that it's coming in August.
Yeah.
And not more September, October.
The premise of this movie that's coming out is basically it's like a ship that's going across the sea, and they have cargo, and somewhere within that cargo is Dracula. And essentially Dracula has been awakened, and now the ship has to figure out how to survive with this thing coming out every night.
So you have a closed environment.
Correct. This blood sucker.
Correct. Yeah. So I like that. I like the ship.
So it's not Twilight.
It's not. I don't think it's Twilight.
And by the way, you don't have to be a killer movie to make a lot of money in August, because August tends to be a little bit more of a dead time, and people are looking for something to see because it's still summer. But all the blockbusters have they've been out for a while. The Sixth Sense was an August movie, and
was it really?
It went boom and was in theaters for like 4 months. So that's what you get a lot of B movies in August.
You're going to do a 2023 summer movie segment for us for North Central Cinema.
Yep.
And then you're also going to dive into Harrison Ford.
Yeah, some other good roles for Ford that are not in blockbuster movies.
Okay. Awesome.
Can I give you one?
Yeah. See if it's on my list.
I can't. Regarding Harry?
Oh, I haven't seen that one.
You never saw it?
Actually, I did see it, but it was so long. Regarding Henry.
Yeah. Regarding Henry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was great.
That's a good performance by him. I'm thinking of something else that I hadn't seen. I did see that movie.
I will just to plug your Harrison Ford one. My mom passed away 3 months ago. I'm losing track of time. Mom passed away recently, and as I was going through your list of Harrison Ford movies,
6 Days, 7 Nights.
There were 6 days and 7 nights, and I got a big smile on my face and thought of my mom because it's one of those just kind of popcorn.
Have you seen that Graham Norton clip that has Ford and Margot Robbie on the couch together?
No.
And it turns out she's a huge Ford fan.
Okay.
So bad that she's like turning red and everything. And she said that's her favorite Ford movie.
Yeah. So when I was going
It's
through
a rom-com.
this,
It's a rom-com.
7 nights.
It's a rom-com.
I mean, I've heard I've heard of it. I've never seen it.
It is one of those like you think you're gonna watch 5 minutes of it, and an hour later you're still watching the thing.
Well, what's
really
funny
is.
about, and now you mentioned this, and probably because of Dial of Destiny, I've seen a lot of clickbaitish things about Harrison Ford and people, and apparently he's one of the coolest guys in Hollywood. Like, just he's a nice guy. He's kind of the Keanu Reeves-ish, as everyone says. He's a wonderful guy. But they interviewed Mark Hamill, who's Luke Skywalker.
I've seen that clip.
When he says,
Kid, it ain't that kind of
yes,
movie. Yeah.
when they
That's-
come
that's
out of the trash
gloriously funny.
compactor, and you've never seen Star Wars?
I've seen Star Wars.
Oh, I thought you've never seen Star Wars.
Oh no, I've seen Star Wars.
Oh, and he says, he looks at, and he's like, wait a minute, if we were just inside it and we're, shouldn't my hair like be all messed up and matted and stuff? And he said, Harrison Ford just looks at me, he goes, kid, it's not that kind of a movie. If they're looking at your hair, we got problems.
And Hamill does such a good Ford imitation.
Oh, yes, it was.
Last thing I'll say about Ford, Apple TV show. I think I mentioned this to you.
Shrinking.
Shrinking.
Yeah.
He's in it. He's doing TV now. I thought the show was funny. I thought he was funny, but it was like shocking to see Harrison Ford like.
What's shocking to
TV
me is
show.
that, the man is an institution. And people will go see a movie just because he's in it. He has one Academy Award nomination and no wins.
For what?
Witness. And that's
Really?
not even his best film.
Sure.
Oh, no, I
but
agree.
That's
Well,
mean,
you're-
Witness is a great movie.
You
but
said he
he's-
has one nomination.
That's it for Witness.
Wow.
That's
He's done so many, like you said, with franchises. He did Indiana Jones.
Why did
He
they
was
not
in-
nominate him for 42?
He
I
was,
mean, he
in
was
the
so
Star
good in
Wars.
that, playing Branch Rickey.
Yeah, I'd forgotten that he was Branch Rickey. I mean, I was just thinking of, God, now I just lost it. The other,
Sorry, my bad.
The Fugitive.
Oh, yeah.
That he, that's another. I mean, it's a franchise. It was legendary TV show, but he was great in The Fugitive.
He was excellent in that. Yep. And carried some real.
Well, I just
emotional
saw
weight.
that again. I probably saw an hour of it. I was just flipping through channels. What a fun movie that
Oh,
is.
yeah.
That's such
That was the kind of peak of his career. That and Air Force One that was kind of like where, he could do no wrong.
Right.
Because he was just making.
So let me throw this out.
Good
I
stuff.
tried. Maybe I'm just too young. American Graffiti. I tried it a long time ago. Is it? I just remember it being slow as can be. Did you?
I kind of love that movie. Sorry.
Is it? I should go give it another shot.
Yeah.
They want to know if you're excited for Meg 2 coming out.
It's funny that we mentioned this.
You were just talking
we
about
were just
that.
talking about it before we went
Right
on the
before
air.
the
'Cause I
segment.
think it was yesterday. Didn't I say to you yesterday?
Yes.
Did you know they're making a Meg 2? I saw the first one, and I was like, okay. It wasn't, I didn't want to gouge my eyes out or anything, but it wasn't very good. And I was dumbfounded that they're making a Meg 2.
I think if you go into it with the right mindset, it's fine.
Let's face it. It doesn't have to be great, right?
No.
It just has to have a really big shark. Is all.
Yeah. Listen, if you were going to that movie thinking you were about to see a good movie, that's a you problem, not a Meg.
Are you a shark movie fan, Mark?
I've seen a lot of them.
Because another B movie that's awfully good, which sounds really stupid, is Deep Blue Sea. Really good
We're
cast.
super rewatchable. Too.
Yeah,
That's
really,
another
really
like,
fun
5
movie.
minute.
Deep Blue
Uh,
Sea. Never
isn't-
saw that.
Isn't Jackson in that movie?
Samuel
Samuel
L.
Jackson,
Jackson, LL
Cool J. Yeah, it's got a really good
I've seen
cast.
those.
And it's
is Matthew
scary.
McConaughey in that one as well.
No, I don't think so. If he
Okay.
is, I'm not remembering it.
But they're the shark movies for me are so hit or miss because some of the worst movies I've ever seen are
You
shark.
said it, man.
So it's like there's not a lot of middle ground if you put a shark.
No,
in,
but
it's either gonna be
and
great
that's
or
interesting
awful.
because I own the first Sharknado. But
You didn't have to admit it in public,
But
dude.
like Sharknado knows what it is. I'm not sure the Meg is trying to be Sharknado.
No, well, I think the Meg. knows
I don't
what
think
it
anything's
is.
trying to be Sharknado, Mark.
But Sharknado is like airplane.
But what do you think the Meg's trying to be? The Meg's not trying to win awards.
You don't think it's trying to
You
be
think Jason
Jaws, a
Statham
bigger
shows,
Jaws?
You think Jason Statham shows up on set and goes, "We're making Jaws." That's not what
He
they're
shows up
doing.
on set and says, "We're making money."
Yes.
Well, I was
that's
gonna say,
that's
where's
what
my
it is.
check? I don't know. Yesterday is the first time I saw it. We had this conversation. I was shocked that they're making a Meg 2.
I'm not surprised at all.
Shocked.
It's summery. People enjoy it. Joe, thank you so much for coming
Yeah,
on.
thanks for being on. I always have a great time.
Over the next week or two, be sure to check out North Central Cinema at NorthcentralPa.com. Harrison Ford, some summer movie stuff. Anything? You 10 seconds. I'm holding you to 10
No,
seconds.
because I'm not going to say it because I want to see what he talks about Harrison Ford because now my mind is racing because he's done so many franchises. But the little, like I
Thank
totally
you guys
forgot he
for
was
watching
Grand
the
Tricky.
Midday Show. Be
Wait,
sure to go
what?
to NorthcentralPa.com
This is
for
rude.
all
You
your
are rude.
local news. We'll see you guys.
I
next
love
time.
you guys. Bye bye.